Coming up today on the Cruise View, we're going to take a look at Jamie's Italian, go visit some of the closed door spaces on board the Quantum, plus we sit down with Emma Laycock to talk about some of the next cruise desk's responsibilities on board a ship. It's all coming up, so let's set sail. Welcome to Day 3B of the Cruise Views sailing on board the Quantum of the Seas. Once again, I am Derek Picone, and today was another sea day for us. But first, our top stories for this sailing that we've been following. At this point, we are still with the Norwegian Gem. She's starting to get ahead of us. Today, we could barely make her out on the horizon, but tonight you can clearly see those lights ahead of us. She will be getting in 1 hour before us into San Juan, so that is why she has now pulled ahead of us. I'm not sure if it was her that slowed down or us that sped up in order for us to meet yesterday, because she did leave ahead of us in New York as well. But in either case, we did get to pull alongside of her, and today we can still see her off in that distance. But today, our noontime location had us at about 26 degrees and 59 minutes north by 68 degrees and 46 minutes west. And at the time, the closest land was almost a tie between San Salvador and Bermuda, with both just over 300 nautical miles away. So pretty much out in the middle of nowhere at that point. And the weather for today, overall it was a decent day. We had sunrise at 7:16 a.m. and sunset at 5:42 p.m. tonight. High was 75, but it was a very cloudy day out. We didn't really get any rain until later this evening, so you could spend time outside, as many did. But the seas were rough and the winds were fairly high. We had 35 knot winds and seas of about 10 foot. And while 10 foot is not too bad, we've seen rougher sea conditions before in other ships. This ship just seems very sensitive to those rough seas, and those 10-foot waves are really tossing her about today. And you could feel it everywhere from the theater all the way up forward on decks 3, 4, and 5, all the way back to 270 on decks 5 and 6. So pretty much anywhere except the hardest ship right in the Royal Esplanade is really getting thrown around today. And those rough seas did cause the North Star to close for the entire day. The first closure of it for the sailing beyond a couple very short technical issues yesterday, but overall it has been running much smoother than last sailing, so it is the first major closure. But for our cruise compass today, there were several activities scheduled. Starting at 12:30 and repeating at 1:30 was the DreamWorks performance, the very first one of this sailing. There were none during last sailing, and it lasted roughly 10 minutes. Today's performance was in the Royal Esplanade, as they all are, and it featured Tigress and Poe along with the cast of Starwater doing a bit of an Asian stylized dance with some fans and stuff, along with commentary by the star of Mamma Mia. So that took place twice today, the same show both times, and there are, I believe, 3 more scheduled throughout the sailing, so we'll check out those as they come up. And then at 3:30 today was the Crown and Anchor event for Gold, Platinum, and Emerald, with 5:15 scheduled for Diamond, Diamond Plus, and Pinnacle. So that was pretty much the same as last week, so I'm not really going to go into too much detail on that. Just the standard get together, get some free drinks, and meet the captain and a couple other high-ranking people to talk about the sailing. And then at 8:30 tonight was the evening's game show. It was Tonight If You Know It, Sing It game show, once again in Boleros, where they've all been this sailing. And I unfortunately did not go to this one. I had a show and dinner scheduled around that same time, so I could not get there to check it out. But we've seen it on other sailings. I mentioned it on the Grandier's Cruise View episodes as well. But I expect the crowds were about the same as we've seen the past couple days. It's still that 8:30 time slot, and just like I can't attend it, and I usually attend all those game shows, I'm sure most people could not. but they're still using that. So hopefully by the end of the sailing things change, but I kind of think at this point we've now seen that same time slot used last sailing and this sailing. I think it's gonna kind of standardize there. There's a lot of music on this ship in the evenings, and venues like Music Hall Boleros are all packed at that time with those events, so I doubt they'll be able to rearrange the schedule too much in order to get those game shows at a later time. But then tonight at 9 o'clock was the comedy show for this sailing, and for us it was starring Jim David, who has been featured in a few different places, has a couple different Comedy Central specials and other different appearances like The Tonight Show, and overall it was a very good comedy show. It was very PG, it did not go into any sort of inappropriate area, so it was very family appropriate. Any of the jokes that weren't were in a level that they wouldn't understand anyway. But it was very good, and he had some very specific quantum jokes. His entire opening was basically about the Vogue scene in Starwater. So he had a lot of very role-specific, quantum-specific jokes that really made it a little more special, made it feel better than those normal comedians that always just come on and give that same generic routine. It was nice to have that change and know that those jokes truly were written within the past day or so while he was on board. So that was a great show for this evening, and that basically wrapped up the night. There are, of course, now the usual musical acts, but not too much happening this late at night. So moving on now, our daily dine for this evening, we're going to take a look at some Italian dining with Jamie's Italian by Jamie Oliver.
Alright, hello, my name is Vieco, I'm from Croatia, I'm a Jamie's Italian General Manager, and a couple of heads up and infos what is Jamie's Italian all about. So Jamie's Italian is pretty much the rustic Italian cooking cuisine with Jamie's Italian twist. Now when we mention the Jamie's Italian twist, it's all about Jamie's itself. This is how the Jamie likes to prepare dishes. This is how the Jamie loves to really, add the additional ingredients and pretty much flavors just to boot up and bring this to the higher next level where he really thinks that it's supposed to be. Jamie's Italian is all about the passion, it's all about Italian family, it's all about Italian cooking, and it's all about freshness of the cuisine itself, and this is what makes this restaurant successful. It's the fresh ingredients that we use, it's the fresh ingredients that we make in the house every single morning, where we extrude our pasta through the most expensive machines that you can find around Italy. It's all about the preparation, which everything is done a la minute from the moment the guest ordered from the menu. So absolutely nothing has been prepared prior the guest comes to the restaurant. Okay, Jamie himself comes from Essex. All this love and passion comes from the cricketers pub where his parents run the pub, still is there. So he started as a very little, by 8 years old, when he was doing the prep for the chefs from the following day, and he gained all this love for the cooking and pretty much preparing the dishes. After that, he went to the Weltmeister school in Essex as well too, and finished up the tour around France just to really develop his knowledge about the culinary. And after that, worked for his mentor and very good partner right now, Giordano Cataldo, who actually established the Jamie's Italian with him himself. So those two folks, they're pretty much running the Jamie's Italian business right now. Just a couple of words about the Gennaro. Gennaro is old-fashioned Italian coming from Amalfi region in Italy, and he is the true one who really brings and puts a lot of effort and passion into making dishes, making sure they all really taste fantastic, making sure that all this Italian love is created, making sure that the cooks behind the line and the wait staff in the front, they understand how important it is to bring this dish out, describe it, and of course, definitely guide the guests through the experience, feed them with informations, and definitely let them know how has that been prepared and what is the flavors they're going to actually, feel on the palate. Gennaro also itself is a gentleman who truly trained and developed Jamie's itself, because Jamie used to work for Gennaro's in a couple of years, and this is when he was recognized in the River Pub Cafe in 2002 by the media spotted, and ever since then came out with a celebrity show called The Naked Chef, and from that point on he was a celebrity, pretty much star with 36 different book authors, which favorite one was the Jamie's Italy and Jamie's Comfort Food as a last model. Now, Jamie's Italian menu offers a feature of variety, call it an old Italy, basically based on the travels around the Italy that Jamie used to go and explore, try to learn the culture and pick up the knowing and pretty much the passion of the people itself. So the Jamie truly would say for himself that he is regretful that he's not Italian, because he loves Italian people and he loves Italian cooking. Jamie's menu on the Quantum of the Seas is a bit summarized, because there's a couple of factors that affect the size of the menu. The first one is the size of the kitchen. However, everything what is involved in the ship operation, it's design first of all, and then of course the safety of fire hazards, and then of course the capacity of the restaurant, which is also a little bit smaller. Menu itself, as I mentioned, features a pure Italian rustic dishes with a twist of Jamie's, where you can definitely enjoy our favorite meat planks and veggie planks, where you can enjoy our pasta. The only restaurants on the ship who makes the pasta on the ship extruded every single morning by the finest chef and the finest cooks. The features, the beautiful mains, starting from the lamb scotadita, or Jamie's famous porchetta, which is basically the Christmas dish brought to the Quantum of the Seas, aubergine or eggplant parmigiana, fantastic, and all the way down to desserts such as Amalfi meringue cheesecake or epic brownie, and so on and so forth. All right, we also do offer the lunch menu, which is pretty much the same as the dinner menu. The difference is in the pricing, that fee for lunch will be $15, dinner will be $25, and that's with the gratuity included on it. It's a fantastic experience. It's a beautiful decorated room with a definitely moderate new design in the Jamie style. He does not have preference about the dress code. He does not have a preference about the guests, because, as I mentioned, it's all about the integrity of being a family and truly enjoy the passion and love of Italian cuisine. Thank you.
I've got to say, I've walked through the Via during the day and the evening, and it seems like that is always a packed venue, so far it's been a very popular eatery on board the Quantum of the Seas. And as for today's venue tour, we are continuing that passive sailing theme with more relaxation days as we look at the Concierge and Diamond Clubs, as well as the Conference Center on board. In recent years, Royal Caribbean has been working to add private clubs throughout the fleet. These venues provide a quieter and more intimate location to spend time relaxing in the evenings and throughout the day. In the morning, they offer a complimentary continental breakfast, including specialty coffees. In the evenings, they then offer complimentary alcoholic beverages to enjoy before dinner. Each venue has its own concierge that can provide assistance with booking excursions, restaurants, shows, or just resolving any other issues a guest may encounter during their vacation. On the Quantum, the Diamond Club is located on Deck 4 between Music Hall and the Royal Theatre. It's open to all Diamond, Diamond Plus, and Pinnacle members. Hidden at the aft of Deck 12 is then the Concierge Club, which is also available to Diamond Plus and Pinnacle members, as well as anyone staying in a Grand Suite or higher. While this location is distant, it does offer wide views out to sea. Located directly above it at the aft of Deck 13, the Conference Center then offers similar wide views out to sea. Split into 4 rooms named after the Radiance class ships, it can operate as a single venue or individual private venues. The venue is available for reservation at no additional charge and can be set up to use as either a presentation room with a full multimedia setup or as a classroom depending on the needs. For those not in a suite or a high-ranking Crown and Anchor level though, it is also a great place to go for some quiet peace and a view. And as you can tell by that Conference Center, the ship is clearly still in a state of progress, still work being done. That's an area that guests usually don't really visit, so it's understandable that would be an area they kind of ignore until they truly need it, and they have resources to allocate it, while some of these more guest-centric areas are much more important to get finished right away. And we have seen a lot of workers around the ship doing repairs, cleanup, just touching up little things, so it truly is an immaculate looking ship at this point. Even after a month, everything still looks brand new. There's no signs of wear at all. Anything that really didn't even look worn yet has already been painted over. So they are just doing an incredible job keeping this ship looking brand new. And we'll see how that conference center turns out in the end. But moving on, our special interview for today's episode, we are going to be talking with Emma Laycock, the loyalty ambassador on board the Quantum of the Seas.
Well, what can I say? I absolutely am overwhelmed with proudness of being asked to take out the Quantum of the Seas. 2,000 members almost on board the Quantum's very first launch.
Today I'm joined by Emma Laycock, the loyalty and cruise sales manager on board the Quantum of the Seas. Thank you for joining me.
No, you're welcome.
As the loyalty and cruise sales manager, we know you run the next cruise area, but what else are you responsible for on board the Quantum?
I also look after the Crown and Anchor program. So of course, being a new ship, we have a lot of members on board right now. In fact, we have 3,800 guests, of which 3,000 are Crown and Anchor members. And we offer a lot of different amenities. We have the Crown and Anchor receptions, we have the behind the scenes tours, we have the delivery of all guest amenities. So I basically oversee all of that as well. My main duties, of course, are the desk hours, but there is a lot of behind-the-scenes work, preparing manifests and amenities and receptions, and also in general, just working on the ship. You have safety trainings, you have management meetings, because I belong to, obviously, the marketing and revenue department. And of course, we've got to also keep an eye on things from a guest perspective. So there may be guests who've got issues with their bookings or any types of questions they may have on board. So, I'm continuously, certainly working with the other teams on the ship, overseeing that everything's, as it should be. So.
Okay. And I understand that before you joined Royal Caribbean, you're already involved in the travel industry?
Yeah, I worked overseas in Europe. I was what we call a resort representative. Basically what that does, from meeting the guests at the airport when they arrive to taking them back to the airport when they go home, and in between arranging their excursions, guiding the excursions, also doing daily visits to hotels, again, medical, luggage, general day-to-day operation. So I worked all over Europe, actually. I worked in Greece, Spain, France, Malta. I did that for 4.5 years before joining Royal Caribbean.
And then you've spent most of your career sending other people on vacation. Mm-hmm. When did you get your first exposure to cruising?
My first exposure to cruising, well, actually, when I was a resort representative working in Mallorca in Spain, a lot of the guests that we would have on land would actually spend a week on the company was First Choice. So First Choice would do cruise and stay, so guests would have a week's cruise and then come and stay on land for a week, and vice versa. Of course, First Choice's ships are much smaller than what Royal Caribbean our ships are, but it was basically what got me thinking about cruise ships, having also some other friends that have worked in the cruise industry as well. So that's really where, probably back 2003, 2004, I really got exposure to it.
Okay. And then when you joined your first ship, you were not part of the next cruise area at all. No. You were part of the cruise director's team. Mm-hmm. How did that happen?
Well, that happened basically when I finished my studies. I did a diploma in travel and tourism management, and when I was looking at the cruise industry, I noticed that this position that I have is not hired externally. And the main reasons being, of course, to work on a ship and do this position, you have to know the ships, you have to know the itineraries, the destinations where we go into. And it's one of the reasons they don't hire externally, because you don't typically have all those things before you come onto a ship. So one of the easiest ways to get on board was in the cruise director's staff, and it's quite a fun job as well. So you don't really have any main responsibility, and of course I was much younger then, and you just come on, you do your day-to-day, and your time is yours. The position that I have now has a lot more responsibility, and of course the experience that I gained as crew staff, just knowing the ships. I worked on all classes of that we have in our fleet. and being able to answer questions that guests will ask about, you know, various, you know, you need to know that, you know, you can't, for me, you can't sell something if you don't know the products, and I know the product inside out, so, yeah.
You eventually did change back to travel, though, when you moved to the next cruise area. What was that transition like?
It was fairly easy. I was on the Explorer of the Seas, and I'd looked into the next cruise, you know, area. Now, back when I was started looking, we only had a manager on each ship. We didn't have a team. So when they delivered Oasis class, they started to add associate position. So we did have associate position on Oasis class and Freedom class, which is around the time that I was looking. So at that point, there was only 5 in the company. So it wasn't easy to get into, but I did get into it quite easy moving across. You know, I put my my resume in, and the manager at the time who hires, because I'd worked with several people who knew, I got, you know, obviously good references, and then as I moved into the position, actually several months later, then they hired as a fleet. We now have teams on each ship. So there's a manager and an associate, and then on Oasis class and Quantum class, we have 2 associates. So now it's a bit easier to get into.
And then you spent several years on the Independence of the Seas before moving to Quantum. What led you to make that switch?
I was asked, actually. I was asked to take out Quantum and Anthem. In the beginning stages, I only wanted to do Anthem, obviously being out from the UK. I had no real interest to move to Quantum. Number one, my husband's an ice skater, and it would have meant a lot of time away. When we looked into it more and I was asked to take out both ships, basically the main reason was that the ships are so close that in our contracts, 1 and then a 2-month vacation, it's actually almost aligns. But also there's so much new technology that to obviously to show 2 people would have taken, you know, and the experience I've gained from taking out Quantum is only going to help for Anthem. So yeah, I was asked, and it was actually an honour to be asked out of such a large team of managers. I think we have around 35 managers as a fleet. So, you know, it was nice to be asked, and at the point of being on Independence so long, I loved Independence, I loved that class of ship, but I was ready for something new, a new challenge, so.
For the past 1.5 years, every ship in the fleet has been showing Quantum of the Seas photos, videos. They've been marketing it like crazy. How have you had to change the way you work now that you're on the Quantum and basically you don't have that sort of hype bubble to work with?
Well, guests are here, and guests see it, and guests get excited when they're on a cruise. And as certainly as it comes towards the end of a cruise, everybody's thinking about their next vacation. Anthem, obviously replacing Quantum in New Jersey, has had you've got the demand there, because most guests who sail out from the Northeast, they like to sail out because they can drive. They're in that, you know, particular area. So, you know, Anthem has been a really big seller because Quantum is because it's replacing Quantum. And same with Liberty, actually. Liberty comes in over the summertime when this goes to China, and Liberty is actually doing really well. It's a great class of ship. You know, it's got a fabulous ice show, and it's got Saturday Night Fever. So there are things that sell a ship, and that, you know, guests in general sailing out from Bayonne, they like to sail out from the same port. So easy, really.
And then the Quantum is headed to China, as you mentioned, and the Anthem's in the UK, and then Bayonne, and then Oasis 3 Innovation will be coming out in 2016. What does the future hold for you beyond Anthem?
The future holds for me. I go to Anthem, I have a break when I leave here, and then I take out Anthem from the yard again in Germany, and then my contract finishes around August, and then I want to take a little break. And when I say break, not from the company, I say a break from, you know, taking out a new ship. There's a lot of spotlight, a lot of, you know, pressure. And I really looked at the itineraries and thought, you know what, I'd like to do a ship for its itinerary. So Explorer is going to Australia, and I'd like to do the transition, which is 58 days from England to Australia, and do some sailings around New Zealand. So that's my choice after that. And of course it has an ice rink, so I'm going to be with my husband, and that's been my main choice, because of course Ovation and Oasis 3 come shortly after that. Right. So I'm sure somewhere along those lines I may be involved in those moving forward, but quite a while away from now. Yeah. Lots of things can happen, but yeah, I'm excited to do Anthem. Certainly been out from England, obviously England's close to my heart because I'm from England, and it's great. I know a lot of guests who've been on Independence year after year, so yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to say to the viewers?
No, if you are planning to work on a ship, you know, there's a lot of opportunities. I do get questions a lot from guests, and certainly for people who see me, you know, to give my presentations, and they wonder how you get into it. It's actually, you know, it's quite easy, and it's a great way to see the world, and if you are not a shopper, to save as well. You know, give yourself a good start in life, because you know you're not paying any outgoings, and you know, it's one thing I would recommend to anyone. It's quite an addictive lifestyle. You know, coming on board almost 9 years ago now. You wouldn't have thought 9 years down the line you're still with the company, still love it, still as enthusiastic now as I was when I stepped on board my first ship. So yeah, recommend it to anyone. Yeah.
Well, thank you for talking to me tonight.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you.
Of course, I got to thank Emma for taking the time to talk to us and letting us know all those little bits of detail about how she does her job on board the Quantum, as well as on her past sailings. And as for tomorrow, it is our first port of call for the sailing as we pull into San Juan, Puerto Rico in the afternoon. So it's a very interesting day. It's a very late arrival, I believe about 4 p.m. So we have an entire morning, nearly a full day, because really, to be honest, anything that's done on a sea day usually wraps up by about 4 p.m. as people have to get ready for dinner. So we've almost got this hybrid sea day with a port day at night. So it's a very unique setup, and we'll see how it looks as we check out the compass tomorrow. So be sure to tune in and find out all about that first port of call for us as the Quantum hits a brand new location once again. But for now, thanks for watching. Once again, I am Picone, and stay tuned for the links.